We are in the middle of a series called Vital, where we are talking about some of the things that are vital to our faith. The most important things that Jesus called us to do and to be. Before we dive into our talk, I want to start by asking you a question. Have you ever come across someone who looks at things a little differently than you? I'm sure you have. I meet people who have different opinions than myself all the time. We all have unique perspectives on how we see the world, as well as the people and things in it.
In fact, I think you might be surprised by all the different viewpoints we have right here in our youth ministry. Even though we have some things in common, we all see things in our own unique ways. And the way we can see the world can be shaped by a bunch of different things. Some of it has to do with what our parents teach us. Some of it has to do with the things we read online or watch on TV. Some of it comes from what the culture is like and where we live. And some of it is based on the things that we enjoy doing in life.
But no matter what shapes our thoughts, opinions, and beliefs, the reality is there are over 7 billion people on Earth. That means there are probably 7 billion different points of view out there. And with so many different ways to view the world, we're bound to find someone who doesn't agree with us along the way.
There are people all around you who view the world differently than you do. And while some people's mindset may not be too far away from your own, others have views that you totally and completely don't agree with or understand. And whether we'd like to admit it or not, sometimes it's hard for us to really care about or get along with people who have a different way of looking at things than we do.
A few weeks ago, we learned that Jesus said having love for God and for others is what's most vital to him. That means if we believe what Jesus said, we're supposed to love all people from every background, country, and culture, even the people we don't understand or agree with. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that isn't always easy.
Maybe it's because the things that separate our views of the world and others are things that are really important to us. They're things like religion, political beliefs, or money. They're things like where we want to live or who we want to hang out with. They're things like the behaviors we have or the things we choose to participate in. They may even be things like the color of our skin or the cultures we come from.
The truth is, it can be really hard for some of us to care for and love people who are different than us. Why? Well, I think this happens for a few reasons. One, we don't care. Most of us already have a group of people whose way of thinking lines up with our own. That makes it much more difficult to find a reason to care about understanding or embracing people whose views are different.
2, we don't understand. When we don't understand something, it's a lot easier to just avoid it. So if we don't understand someone else's perspective, we just stay away and don't engage. Or 3, they don't like us. Sometimes it's not us who have decided to write someone off because of their opinions and beliefs. Sometimes we're the ones being judged because of our way of viewing things. When that happens, it's easy to just say, well, they don't like me. Why should I like them?
Now, while I understand all this, it doesn't change the fact that Jesus said it's vital for us to love others. And if we're going to experience the life he created us to live, then we have to live the way he says is best. We have to find a way to be for the people we don't understand.
So how can we push through our differences and find a way to love all people? Well, Jesus actually gives us an example of what to do. He doesn't just say, go love God and others and don't ask any more questions. Just figure it out on your own. Instead, Jesus lived his life in a way that set an example for us to follow.
One of Jesus' best friends, a guy named John, wrote down a story from Jesus' life that we can learn a lot from. In John chapter 4, we get a glimpse of an incredible moment in Jesus' life that serves as an example for us today.
One day, Jesus was on a journey from one part of ancient Israel to another. This long walk took him through a town called Samaria. Now, Samaria wasn't a good place for people like Jesus to be seen because Jesus was a Jew. And Samaria was full of people who the Jews didn't get along with. Samaritans had a completely different way of approaching and viewing the world than the Jewish people had at that time. They were two groups divided by race, social class, and even the way they practiced religion. So Jesus took a big risk just being in Samaria.
While in Samaria, Jesus decided to find a well, which is a big hole in the ground that's filled with water. You drop a bucket like this down to pull the water up. Jesus was thirsty, so he went to the well for a drink of water. When he got to the well, Jesus found a woman there. Now, it's important for you to know that it was about noon when Jesus arrived at the well, meaning it was the hottest part of the day. I'm talking the muggiest, most humid, most suffocating heat you can think of. Typically, no one went to the well at that time of day because it was so hot. Instead, they would go in the morning. The only reason someone would have gone to the well in the middle of the afternoon was if they didn't want to run into anyone else.
And that's exactly what this woman was doing. As we learn more of her story, we eventually see that she was a woman who was making choices that were unacceptable and even shameful to most of the people in her society. To say that she had a different mindset than Jesus would be an understatement. So when Jesus found her at the well, he could have approached this woman in a lot of different ways. He could have made fun of her. He could have yelled at her. He could have avoided her. But look what he did instead. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans.
What Jesus did here was so simple and yet so amazing. Jesus started a conversation. He engaged with this woman and started to ask her questions. He paid attention to her. He talked to her and chose to take the first step to get to know her. Why? Because she mattered to Jesus. Now, this woman was probably completely thrown off by the fact that Jesus spoke to her. In her world, this didn't just happen. Jews like Jesus didn't talk to Samaritans like her. But that day, Jesus made a choice to change all that. He and the Samaritan woman talked about their differences, and she even asked him some important questions about life and faith. Toward the end of their conversation, Jesus let her in on who he really was, the promised Savior of the world.
And Jesus' conversation with the woman at the well didn't just change her life. It wound up changing the lives of a bunch of people. The Samaritan woman was so moved by the way Jesus talked to her that she actually went to the rest of the town and told people everything that had happened in her conversation with Jesus. And do you know what happened? Let's find out. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony.
Jesus made a choice to truly get to know this woman. He chose to have a conversation with her despite the ways in which they disagreed, because to him, she mattered. And when he did, it didn't just change her, it changed the entire community. So what can we learn from this? Well, I think that if Jesus was willing to find ways to love people with different points of view, we can do the same. Everyone matters to Jesus, so everyone should matter to us.
When we choose to ignore or avoid someone with a different point of view, we're actually putting them into a category, a group that we think is different than us. To most Jews, this Samaritan woman would have been in a category of unlovable, rejected, or weird. And if we're being honest, even today, we have a tendency to look at the people who view the world differently than us and ask if they're in the same kind of category as this woman.
But Jesus chose not to do this. Instead of putting the Samaritan woman into a category, Jesus decided to show her that she mattered. And I think that's exactly where we have to start too. Everyone matters to Jesus, so everyone should matter to us. We can see the value in people rather than just the ways in which they are different from us. We can choose to show they matter to us. And when we do, it can then lead to change.
When we have conversations with people and show them that they matter, it can lead to change. Loving people who are different than us doesn't mean we disregard our own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. It just means our differences with others don't have to keep us from actually being for other people. It means that everyone matters to us because they matter to Jesus.
So how can you and I start loving people who are different than us? Here's a couple ideas. 1, start paying attention. Pay attention to who you surround yourself with. Who do you talk to on a regular basis? If they all think, act, and believe the same way you do, then you probably need to expand your circle by getting to know people who are different from you.
2, start learning. There are so many ways to learn about other people. Follow someone different than you on Instagram. Watch a Netflix documentary or movie about another culture. Read something different than you typically do. Put yourself in a position to learn a little more about the people you don't really understand.
And 3, start more conversations. Where's your well? Where's the place that you tend to hang out and talk to people? Maybe your well is the school cafeteria, or your locker, or a bench at the skate park. Now think about where you can go to talk to someone new. Make an effort to move beyond your categories and start talking with people who are different than you. These don't have to be long debates or deep conversations. A simple hello is a great place to start. I think the more you talk with those you think are different, the more you'll find in common than you think.
Remember, loving others is vital to our faith in Jesus. And if we believe in him, what's important to him should be important to us. Since everyone matters to Jesus, everyone should matter to us. As you head out, I want you to think about this. What's one thing you can do to show love to someone who's different than you?